Hi, colleagues. Welcome back. May we ask you to take your seats, and we might ask you something different, which is anyone who is sitting in a lonely chair like Greg, please join another table, because we will be doing an exercise after that needs to have people around. Colleagues, we're going to start this part of the exercise of the local social covenant, which is starting to define our platform of engagement with organized civil society and other stakeholders in terms of what we are doing. Emilia, during this morning, mentioned this is our social covenant. It is based on human rights, public services, and the rethinking of what local democracy means, and it has 8 pillars. 8 pillars that were defined by our political leadership, and they come from nothing else but our Pact for the Future. You can see in those white squares that you have been seeing throughout the week that this is the text from the Pact for the Future. Because many times you think, well, not you, some people think that we are inventing new stuff, that we are coming with new priorities, that we are having new ideas every year, but this comes from the Pact for the Future, and it is only that we are putting the 8 pillars in the first row of our strategy to go towards the World Social Summit. And through 3 cross-cutting areas. One is the caring territories as our Pact for the Future, non-discrimination and anti-racism, and then what we have been doing around the week, which is youth meaningful engagement. Through 3 ways of engaging: high-level political commitments, actions for present and future generations, and multilateral strategies. This we can start discussing later, but what we will be discussing today is the high-level political commitments, what we will be calling for in the World Social Summit, and what our leadership is committing to on these 3 pillars and beyond. So to break up a bit the conversation and to start talking after lunch, our colleagues from the learning team have prepared a game that you will be doing in your tables, and I asked my colleague Sarah Hoflich to help me on the game. Be ready to speak with the people you're sitting with, and I hope you speak the same language. If not, we can try to assist you. But Sarah, what are we going to ask our colleagues to go? And we will be going to the tables to ask, so also be ready to be questioned.
Thank you, Pablo. Yes, we will definitely try to get your views into the social covenant, as Pablo was just explaining. And for this, we have created a little chatterbox. I hope that you know what a chatterbox is. Anybody has played with a chatterbox some years ago, decades ago? Yeah, here some hands. Little hands. Okay, I will explain. The chatterbox, you play. One person puts the chatterbox to open, close, and another person puts the finger into the chatterbox whenever you put your finger. Okay, and then I will look what you have to do. You have to get your left leg up.
Oh, wait. Now you'll see one of the thematics of the covenant.
Okay, this is a thematic of the discover yourself. Of course, but this is just a help, because we need you on the table. Please look at your number, select a topic, and then with the topic, do a short group discussion.
With the questions that I'll ask my colleagues to put on screen, please.
Along 3 questions. So the questions you should discuss about are: what role do local governments play? The second one, how can the care perspective contribute to this? And the third one is, what is your expectation for our contribution to the World Social Summit? So we see that, please, everybody who has no partner, or if you want, join your tables with more people, more fun. And then you can have a 10-minute discussion.
Even less. Sarah, we'll do it 5 minutes.
5
because
minutes
we're running out of time as always.
And you put your key ideas into this yellow card. You have markers, so you can put it into the yellow card, and then we will shortly run through the table and see what you have worked
And we will put you some music if possible.
Anybody has a question?
If
Or is
possible,
all
we can
clear?
put them a bit of music so that we don't have to be speaking.
No questions? No hay preguntas. ¿Todo bien? Okay, I don't see any questions, so please.
Start
Have fun.
discussing with each other. And do have in mind that we have to answer, what role do local governments play? How can the care perspective contribute to this? And what is your expectations for our contribution to the World Social Summit?
Teníamos uno aquí, nos lo quitaron.
¿Teníamos uno?
No, o sea, yo estoy a punto de moderar, me da igual jugar a esto.
Yo quiero jugar.
¿Quieres jugar contigo misma? Mesa. Vaya mesa para jugar. No está mal,
Ay, no.
Mira, pero sí, algo muy bien. ¿A qué hora pretendemos acabar? Ya, perfecto.
Está bien, no hay que siempre... Hay que quitar las fiestas siempre antes de que, o sea, en el mejor momento. ¿Sabes? Esta teoría que hay que quitar las fiestas en su mejor momento. No, se oye.
Can we ask our colleagues to put the questions again? But why is this important for local and regional governments? How can we see this through a care perspective? And what are we bringing together to the World Social Summit? Colleagues, we will start asking you. So I'm going to these partners. I'm coming to you, Paula, exactly. Who's the spokesperson of this table? Is it Paula or I have to ask someone else? It's Paula. So Paula, I have your microphone here. What was the thematic that came into your, and can I ask the music to get a bit down? What was the thematic, and please try to answer a bit what you found out.
Hi, Pablo. So the thematic we chose was finance, a challenging one. And we were discussing how local governments can allocate resources in a more targeted way. They understand how to better allocate resources to the populations, regions, areas that are most needed. We explored some examples, including participatory budgeting, gender-sensitive budgeting, also providing funding in different ways to civil society. And on the third question about what to bring to the World Summit, we thought about bringing proposals for innovative and more effective financing streams to local governments.
Thank you very much, Paula.
Great contribution.
I have to say this has to do with what we were referring before, which is not only access to finance, but how we are spending in the local governments. So thank you very much. Sarah, I'm going there just to let them know before that my colleagues from the learning team will be writing everything that you are doing, and we'll try to have something later today. So Sarah.
Yeah, that's why you should use your cards, please. Here we have Jordi as a spokesperson. What was your issue?
Thank you. So we got food, or rather food systems, and zero hunger. And we only got as far as talking about one role that local governments play. In fact, the local government of Montevideo, the capital city of Uruguay, immediately after the pandemic, created this system of support to families who were struggling with food security in the aftermath of the pandemic, based on primary healthcare centers supporting the families with cash to cope with food insecurity.
Thank you. And you were lucky because you had Anna from Let's Food, a mayor, and the head of a secretariat in that chair, so thank you. I'm coming to this very impressive conversation, I have to say, because we have partners and our Ubuntu advisors. So who's the spokesperson? Great. Mikkel from Slum Dwellers International. What do you got in the thematics? And please try to answer.
We had public health as the thematic, not the number one even. And we started with a bit of a lecture. The origins of local government actually ties in with the delivery of public health. See, that was something I didn't know. Vaccines, clinics, environmental health, a lot of things were mentioned. Obviously, it depends on the mandate in specific countries of public health. That actually moved into a discussion that say almost all services, when we talk about water, sanitation, just to name a few, ties in with public health as well. So there's a huge sort of overlap or intersectionality here, which is interesting to explore. Then it was mentioned that it's also maybe a very good place to connect with your citizenry, your communities, because health is on everyone's agenda. It's something, no matter political standpoint, so you always have a sort of an overlapping interest here. And lastly, we didn't discuss it so much, but on what's your expectations for our contribution to the World Social Summit, this universal health coverage theme came up as that should maybe be our core contribution here.
Thank you, Mikel. And you were lucky because Maria Fernanda was together with Emilia in the Universal Health Coverage 2030 of WHO. And Greg's past in the AIDS assistance movement is also a really good force to answer these questions. Thank you,
So maybe
Sarah.
you did not choose by chance. The same could happen here. What was your issue and what are your responses?
Thanks, Ada. I'm Sofia from the Global Platform for the Right to the City. We chose by chance, we can attest. And basically, we ended up with culture.
No way.
The destiny. No, but yeah, it's filmed. You can see the records. But basically, so we tackled the first two questions. And so on the role of local and regional governments, we talked about decentralization. So decentralizing culture spatially, so decentralizing cultural spaces, but also the notion of culture as well, no? And the knowledge that you consider and you give visibility to that, and the role that both of those components have on social inclusion and the right to the city. And on the crossing of care, again, this idea of decentralization in the sense of also looking at cultural rights from the perspective of traditional knowledge and ways of caring, and how that intersects with a feminist approach and distribution of responsibilities. I don't know if anyone wants to complement. We'll leave it at that.
I think that was amazing how you summarized, and actually wonderful contribution. I'm sure we will come back to this in the debates later.
Thank you. Who's the spokesperson from this table? Catherine, I'm going to ask Catherine to go. Don't be shy, Catherine, and please let us know. And then you want to go? Yeah, You can take this microphone, please, and if you have the notes, then it's you.
So hello, everybody. We also have the public health subject. So we said that public health shouldn't just be a subject on its own, but more healthiest cities in general. That people should have closer access to facilitate health access with interdepartmental communities. And health should be the center of local government's policies. So yeah, that's what we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm happy that we're having two tables with public health, because we normally tend to be related in WHO only with air quality and road safety, which are very important thematics, but not absolutely linked to a new way of delivering this agenda. So, Sarah, I'm going back to you on that side of the room.
Yeah, and here we have Alexandra from Moscow who will talk about housing.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alexandra. As Sarah mentioned, we've got the issue named housing. So how can the local government, what is the role of the local government in this issue? I guess the local governments can play a crucial role in this matter, because it could provide the decent housing for all groups of the people. For instance, in Moscow, we have the renovation program that provides decent housing for all the citizens, and the financial resources come from the budget of the city. So the question number 2 is, how can the care perspective contribute to this? We think that taking into account the interests of all groups, like elderly people, children, vulnerable persons, these renovation programs, these housing renovations could take into account the interests of all, providing public spaces, schools, healthcare system, all the infrastructure. So that's it.
Thank you very much. As we said in the morning, no one without us in our agenda of disability. This is matching very nicely. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'm going to the last table. I guess it's in Jude from the city of Amman in Jordan. So you have the floor.
Yeah, hello. Our Secretary General have the choice of zero hunger. So our answer for the first question, what role do local government plays? It's for control and regulation, food waste reduction, as well as urban agriculture initiatives to enhance food security and identify humanitarian aids. For the second question, how can the care perspective contribute to this? We can through on focusing on the disadvantaged and vulnerable group of people, like migrants, like refugees, women, children, whatever, and empowering them on urban agriculture. Okay. The last question: what is your expectation for our contribution at the World Social Summit? It's on networking and building capacity of cooperation toward food safety and security.
Thank you very much, Jude. And it's worth reminding that the local social covenant was launched politically during the U20 and the G20 past year in Brazil. Actually, it was presented to President Lula, and it was back-to-back to the coalition against hunger and poverty that was launched in the framework of the G20. Sarah, final thoughts on this exercise and what we will get back from the tables later today.
Yeah, I think you have given a lot of thought, and all these 8 issues you could find in the chatterbox will be addressed and deepened. And we hope you not only follow your own issue, but also the others. So thank you very much. We will take up your ideas and take notes and give back to you. Thank you. Thank you,
Sarah. And colleagues, we will start now the dynamic of the high-level commitments. Please have in mind that this afternoon, the floor is always open. We will be asking you to speak, so be cautious that we might get with microphones whenever we think it's necessary, but because what we are trying to have, as you see, we have no people here. People will coming to pitch on their ideas. Albert Jadot will be moderating the partners, and then myself, Emilia, Cecile, we will be opening the floor to see how to contribute to the 8 pillars that we have presented and some cross-cutting pillars. So, Albert, the floor is yours to kick off this. We will have a movie as well in between. And we have our partners from the Social Covenant, so it is time now both to listen, but as well to question them and to rethink all together on what they will be presenting. So, Albert, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pablo. And it's a pleasure to be with you all today. And I want to pick up a quick idea that was shared this morning to kick off the discussion and to understand the idea of making this an interactive exercise. It was told that the social covenant, it's to be an agreement of the willing to move forward. We will not find an agreement likely this afternoon, but this is the kickstart moment to start defining these commitments, these political commitments that will be at the heart, and that for you today in the room is to express those that you think that must be there, that cannot be missed, and that you will bring both with the pitches that I will present the format now, but also from the room. We do want this to be an exercise of co-creation, an exercise where, as we always say, cities need to be listened, but cities need to listen as well. And this is at the core of the local social covenant, as it was in the past in the UCLG town hall when we were looking at our different congresses. So the idea today is to have different moments where a number of partners will introduce very shortly, very succinctly to the point, actionable elements that should be at the core of these high-level commitments. We will have people talking about culture, about anti-racism, about conflict prevention, about public health, about housing, and the idea is that then the room will complete those reflections. We will start by 2 pitches that are very central, not only in the local social covenant, but at the agenda of UCLG, looking at the Pact for the Future and at the different mandates that the World Organization has. And I will start by giving the floor to Rosa Ferrer, co-director of the Thyssen Foundation for Nemidza at Contemporary, a foundation that is central on promoting the transformation of the environment with relevant advocacy and co-creation experiences looking at UN processes, for example, at UN Oceans Conference 1 and 2, and looking at the 3rd one very soon. Rosa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I will speak in Spanish. We decide that. I don't know why. But I'm Rosa Ferrer, as you introduced me, and we want to present our support to the cultural campaign goal through our expertise as a foundation of contemporary art and advocacy. La Cumbre Social Mundial de Doha de noviembre y la Coalición Social Local suponen una oportunidad única para adoptar un enfoque verdaderamente holístico de la sostenibilidad. Uno que reconozca el arte y la cultura, o las artes y la cultura, como componentes vitales de la regeneración planetaria. Lograr el desarrollo sostenible requiere más que soluciones tecnológicas y cambios en las políticas. Exige una profunda transformación cultural. Por esa razón es fundamental seguir abogando por el arte y la cultura, respaldando la campaña del objetivo cultural dentro de las agendas de desarrollo sostenible y las discusiones posteriores a 2030. Un enfoque regenerativo de los ODS, visto a través del prisma del arte y de la cultura, puede inspirar soluciones innovadoras y fomentar comunidades más inclusivas y resilientes. Y ahí es donde nosotros operamos. Para alcanzar esta visión, también debemos apoyar la creación de un mecanismo representativo dentro del sistema de las Naciones Unidas, asegurando que las voces de la cultura y de las artes contribuyan de una manera significativa a los diálogos y las acciones globales que definirán el futuro de nuestro planeta. TVA 21 es la Fundación Thyssen-Bornemisza Art Contemporary, una de las principales fundaciones internacionales de arte y acción pública. Creada en el 2002 por la filántropa y mecenas Francesca Thyssen-Bornemisza, la Fundación trabaja a partir de la colección TVA 21 y de un importante programa de actuación que incluye exposiciones, programas públicos y educativos. TVA 21 tiene su sede en Madrid, donde opera en asociación con el Museo Thyssen-Bornemisza, muchos de vosotros lo conocéis, y desarrolla iniciativas claves también en Venecia, donde tenemos un centro de arte y ciencia, el Ocean Space, así como en Portland, en Jamaica. Toda la labor de TVA 21 es colaborativa y está impulsada principalmente por artistas y por la creencia de que el arte y la cultura son portadores de transformación social y medioambiental y, en última instancia, contribuyen a la paz. En este sentido, nosotros, TVA 21, concebimos la paz como un quehacer continuo de afirmación de la vida, la diversidad y la convivencia. Y comprometidos con esta visión, la Fundación busca teorizar, ensayar y desarrollar, junto con los artistas, prácticas orientadas a la construcción de paz. La Fundación creó hace más de una década un programa que se llama la Academy, que es un programa de investigación y acción que ha desarrollado su actividad durante más de 15 años como incubadora para la investigación colaborativa, la práctica artística y la defensa del medio ambiente. La Academy propone proyectos que son catalizadores de nuevas formas de conocimiento, basados en la interdisciplinaridad, surgidos de la relación entre arte, ciencia, políticas públicas y conservación, como una nueva aproximación a los acuciantes retos del presente. TVA 21, a lo largo de su larga trayectoria, ha experimentado el potencial transformador de los artistas como motores de cambio cuando participan en proyectos interdisciplinares. Son capaces de poner sobre la mesa nuevas preguntas, abrir nuevos imaginarios, mediar intercambios de conocimiento, romper silos, hacer conexiones insospechadas, pensar y construir desde las relaciones. Para nosotros el concepto clave es experiencia y es eso lo que queríamos compartiros hoy. Como dijo la escritora Ursula K. Le Guin, la pregunta no es para qué sirve el arte, sino qué nos hace el arte. Los neurocientíficos han demostrado que saber algo no lleva directamente a actuar. Han demostrado que los datos no son suficientes. El conocimiento por sí solo no nos llega a la acción. El compromiso de la sociedad por la transformación ecológica está vinculado a las emociones. El arte y la cultura tienen el poder de crear significado, contexto y empatía, elementos esenciales para pasar del conocimiento a la acción. Por eso, desde TVA 21 queremos contribuir a los debates de política pública aportando a la Science Policy Interface una dimensión experiencial, emocional, que desde la empatía impulse la acción y la implementación de estas políticas públicas. Nuestra experiencia nos anima a estar aquí y de verdad que consideramos que no solo la cultura, sino las artes son cruciales en este momento difícil. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Rosa. Thank you very much. And I will stick to that very sentence. What art makes to us? ¿Qué nos hace el arte? And how do we leverage art and culture in this very moment that we have spent the whole week talking about where the world is going, where we are, how fast everything is going? Let's pause and let's look at art and culture to reassess the path forward. And let's put art and culture at the center of our local social covenant. Thank you. I wanted to mention before I give the floor to Linda Tinio from UNESCO that at the margins or in the context of the World Day for Social Justice, colleagues from the International Labour Organization couldn't make it today, but we have been in touch for the last weeks to try to secure their place, and even if they are not here, we are happy to announce that the local social covenant will be a formal key intervention in their global coalition for social justice, which gathers over 360 partners. So a very big coalition that it's a good mirror for what we want to achieve in this covenant to bring our partners to the table and discuss together. So a big shout out for them as well in this World Day for Social Justice. I will move now to my colleague from UNESCO, Linda Tinio, who is the coordinator of the International Coalition of Inclusion and Sustainable Cities, ICAR, who was recently with us in Barcelona for UNESCO's Global Forum Against Racism and Discrimination to provide the pitch on anti-racism. Linda?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me start by saying thank you to the UCLG for inviting UNESCO. And I'm very pleased to be here with you. I have to admit, this is not the easiest topic to delve, especially in the current context. But we will continue the fight, and I hope that we will find ways to collaborate together. So I think the most important thing that we have to ask ourselves now is, looking at this topic, anti-racism, how do we preach to the unconverted? I would like to suppose, I would like to assume that in this room we are all choir singers already. No, so we are all in this together, and that I think we just have to find ways to reinforce this community of practice together with UNESCO, and then we think that by being strengthened, we will be able to enlarge the circle of what I'm saying is the ones that we need to really involve in this community. So let me start by saying that UNESCO has always been working on the issue of racism since the 1950s. No, there's the debunking of the myths of race science. You know that already, but through the years we have worked with all our 194 member states to issue all these different declarations against racism. And we have recently established the network of anti-racism and anti-discrimination officials, made up of, so far, 18 officials from around the world. But at the level of cities, we are very much engaged with different cities around the world in the International Coalition of Inclusive and Sustainable Cities, formerly known as the International Coalition of Cities Against Racism, ICCAR. And with the team of UCLG, we are currently looking at how we can work together, especially for the covenant. So this ICAR member cities is wide-ranging with 7 regional and national coalitions. The current presidency is being held by the city of Montevideo. And we are very happy to find synergies to work with you, UCLG, and the cities that work here. And a very important element that we are trying to push now is the city youth councils. We would like to work with you in these spaces. The topic of the retreat is very, very relevant. So we are looking at how these legitimate spaces where youth have a voice in the decision-making table at the municipality is going to be an efficient way, and to avoid youth tokenism. So that's one thing that we can probably work on together with the UCLG. So this is the first part on how do we do legal institutional frameworks with the cities. That's one pillar. UNESCO also works on data and research. We talked about this morning. So nothing works faster if there's done with evidence. No? So we think that this is a pillar that we should work together. We are looking at how equality data in cities can be leveraged. And in the ICAR member network, we have installed the 10-point plan of action. So this is a series of commitments that the cities can make to establish policies and programs related to anti-discriminatory policies in housing, employment, education, and even culture. So that's something we think we can leverage with. And of course, there is the Masterclass Series Against Racism and Discriminations. This is something where we work with youth. We work with cities. Some of the cities here have already worked with us, and this is where we train the young people to become anti-racism champions in their own schools and communities. And last but not the least, we have the pillar on advocacy and awareness raising, where we organize the Global Forum, the annual Global Forum Against Racism and Discriminations, which is actually, which was held in Barcelona last year, and we hope that we will have you in the next edition later during the year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda and Rosa. Colleagues, the floor is open. Any brief reactions to both? And we know it's very difficult. There are huge thematics, both cultural rights, art, and anti-racism. We have Fabiana, who is the chair of the network that was referred by UNESCO. Any reactions you want to do, the floor is open. And if not, I will go to Greg, which is, I want to ask you something out of nowhere, which is, from the Cities Alliance perspective, the idea of cultural rights and arts, you don't have to give me answers, but this can give us avenues to go together to the social summit. What do you think about this, Greg?
So we've had a bit of a learning experience in Cities Alliance. We've been working in North Africa, in MENA, on water. And we've been looking at it through the eyes of women. Not only women as water collectors, but women as decision makers. And we're working in a town that none of you will ever have heard of. It's called Fagig. It's in Morocco, and it's a 5-hour bus ride from the nearest airport. And this is a nomad town. And the town is drying up, and it's dying. And we've just discovered in Fagig the ancient Qanat water system that stretches back 3,500 years. I think the oldest Qanat water system is in today's Iran. And this is a water distribution system that was a community asset. And we suddenly had this aha moment, and we involved UNESCO, in fact, saying that heritage and climate actually go together. And suddenly there are old solutions to current problems. And we keep on thinking we must have new solutions to new problems. There's actually old solutions. And suddenly we start talking about culture and heritage, or heritage and climate. And then we're also working in Jordan, looking at economic opportunities of impoverished women. And we're looking at what is the culture in Jordan. And the whole issue of mosaic and mosaic art in Jordan. And we are now training women in Jordan on using their heritage and culture for employment opportunities. And this has been a bit of a learning experience for us, and we've been involving UNESCO in this learning experience. So, we work in urban poverty, we work in informal settlements, and culture and heritage is also there.
Thank you, Greg. Albert, someone from that side, and then we go to the...
I've been asking here around, the room is still a bit shy, beginning of the session. I will need to look into someone if no one volunteers. I've seen a hand.
But if not, what I suggest then is we have culture, heritage, UNESCO, and we want to introduce you to what we have been doing in our host city during the occasion of the World Forum Against Racism. We ask you for your patience. Have a look at this film. You know that we've been doing series about what our membership is doing linked to the processes, and then we come back to follow up with other presentation speeches, and be ready because we will be asking you. So please.
Barcelona es una ciudad que ya en su historia contemporánea en el siglo XX está formada por el aluvión de personas llegadas de toda España, por ejemplo. Y eso tiene como consecuencia que casi todos los barceloneses tengamos o familia que ha nacido fuera de Barcelona y de Cataluña, o familia que ha emigrado a otros países. Es decir, en general todos los españoles y los catalanes y los barceloneses somos también hijos de la emigración. Hay más ciudadanos de Barcelona por elección que por nacimiento, y eso da una pista de hasta qué punto nuestra ciudad se ha abierto y es un cambio que va a más, no va a menos, y por lo tanto tenemos que convertir esa fuerza, esa diversidad en una fortaleza.
Problema estructural que se encuentra además perpetuado por los modelos de gobernanza que nos hemos dado. Esos mismos modelos de gobernanza pueden ser transformados para convertirse en modelos antirracistas.
también está el punto negativo y el auge del discurso de odio, sobre todo en el que nos encontramos, ¿no? Actualmente. Lo podemos ver a nivel europeo, a nivel mundial, de que existe un auge, ¿no? Sobre todo del odio contra las personas de origen diverso.
Yo que estoy sentado aquí, que tengo esta responsabilidad, ¿qué puedo hacer para evitar que eso sea así? ¿Qué tenemos que hacer para evitar que eso sea así? ¿O qué tengo que hacer para que eso no pase en mi ciudad?
Efectivamente, hemos querido realizar una campaña que se llama Voces contra el Racismo y el objetivo principal de esta campaña es dar voz a las personas que luchan a diario contra el racismo, que viven este racismo, porque como administración no veía justo tener que ocupar un espacio que realmente deben de ocupar las personas que luchan contra el racismo.
¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? ¿Qué tal? ¿Qué tal?
Aquí, bueno, aquí estamos en la biblioteca ahora que empezamos para que las personas vayan contando sus historias, cómo es una persona emigrada aquí en Barcelona, cómo es una persona de...
Para mí una ciudad antirracista, ante todo, tiene que ser valiente. Y eso es lo necesario, una ciudad que defienda espacios seguros, espacios de debate sobre nuestras diferencias, espacios de celebración de nuestras diferencias, donde cualquier vecino y vecina puede vivir libremente su cultura, su lengua, su religión y su manera de respirar.
Esta campaña comunicativa ha ido acompañada de unas 70 actividades más o menos. Consideramos que o las políticas se hacen con estas personas que sufren el racismo o no se hacen.
Al pueblo gitano sobre todo se le persigue por tener unos valores diferentes a los que se exigía o se sigue exigiendo hoy en día, ¿no? Que esos valores... El racismo te afecta por quién eres, no por cómo te comportas, ¿no? Entonces yo creo que muchas personas esto lo viven como si fuera algo contra él mismo, ¿no? Con vergüenza, con culpa. Creo que asociarse, organizarse con otra gente que también se ve afectada por la misma problemática ayuda a recuperarse la autoestima como persona y también a ser más fuerte en las reivindicaciones y en la lucha y en tener más incidencia política.
Las ciudades somos la solución. Entonces, de un lado, expresamos nuestra vocación internacional como ciudad, nuestra vocación de cooperar con otras ciudades, también nuestra apuesta por el multilateralismo a través de organizaciones del CFLU.
Es importante ver que nuestras oficinas están en el corazón de la ciudad vieja de Barcelona. Barcelona ha sido fundadora del movimiento municipalista, que esos vínculos con otras ciudades del planeta han sido muy estrechos y eso ciertamente marca al movimiento de una forma clara. Tenemos que ser feministas, tenemos que ser antirracistas, declarada y decisivamente.
Viendo cómo fuerzas contrarias a la igualdad y abiertamente racistas toman el poder en grandes potencias mundiales. No es suficiente solo con no ser racistas, sino antirracistas.
We need a combined effort in the stand against racism because the impact of far-right dialogues, narrative, is increasing, it's pervasive, and I think cities are really well placed because of the communities that they serve.
...30 de cada 100 que habitamos llevamos otros mundos en las miradas, otras melodías en los oídos.
Barcelona ha de lluitar contra narratives que deshumanitzen els seus veïns i veïnes.
Denunciar el racismo y las desigualdades y ponerlo a la práctica con medidas y acciones concretas, no más vidas a contracorriente.
When I see young people going on demos and protests, using their social media for good, I have much more faith that the future is going to be bright.
La democracia no es solo votar en unas elecciones, yo creo que eso ya cada vez es más evidente, ¿no? La democracia es un conjunto de valores, el respeto a las minorías, el respeto a los derechos humanos, el respeto a la diferencia, la inclusión, que forman parte de una idea de la democracia.
Som aquí per reivindicar una Barcelona justa, equitativa i diversa. Som aquí per dibuixar un lloc per tots i totes on puguem declarar feliços Barcelona, casa nostra.
Estimada Barcelona, gràcies.
The mayor of Barcelona was supposed to be with us to watch this movie together. He's defending housing rights in Brussels right now, so that's why he's not here with us. That is equally important. I hope you enjoyed the movie. It's a beta version. It's a beta version. The director is right here, Ferran Romeu. Come. And he wants to say it's a beta version because he said, Emilia, I haven't finished yet. And I said, yeah, but I want to show it now. And he's like, yeah, but it's not. It was good, right? It was good enough.
Gracias.
Yeah. It's one of the many documentaries. We call them documentaries even if they are so short. It's one of the many documentaries that we have been working on with Ferran. And let me explain to you the process that we go through with Ferran is, Ferran comes to these, for him, very boring meetings to hear what we have to say. And then we pick up together those topics that we would like to cover and the cities of the world that are doing something on them. We have beautiful ones on Lampedusa, on Bogotá, on Mexico City, now Barcelona, Banjul also. And the idea is to carry on. And so my question to you, Ferran, is how has coming across the municipal movement transformed your life? What do you think of this weird ecosystem we have?
Bueno, gracias, Emilia. Voy a hablar en español, así me siento un poco más fluido. No esperaba hablar hoy, así que...
No, I always put people on the spot, you know that. Yes.
Pero bueno, para mí es una experiencia porque yo no vengo del mundo de la política, ni del mundo de las relaciones internacionales, ni nada por el estilo. Y para mí es un mundo que se ha abierto, ¿no? Creo que pues, con cada documental que hemos hecho... tengo la sensación de que voy aprendiendo cosas nuevas, ¿no? Y el objetivo de todos un poco es intentar poner el foco en distintas temáticas. Hemos hecho documentales acerca de la migración, sobre antirracismo ahora en Barcelona, sobre cuidados también, sobre feminismos en Banjul. Y para mí es intentar explicar pues, un mundo, temáticas bien complejas a partir de cosas pues, más concretas, ¿no? Y a partir de esto, de trabajo no solo de un alcalde, sino de toda una ciudad, ¿no? Entera.
Muchas gracias, Ferran. Gracias on behalf of all of us, because your work has a very tangible dimension, a human dimension, that is not marketing. You really reach the heart of people with the work that you do. So I am looking forward to the next adventure together. I don't know what it will be, but if anybody in the room have ideas about a story that they would like to tell from the local perspective, we are very open to follow that path, right? Muchísimas gracias, Ferran.
Gracias a ti,
Thank you.
Emilia. Gracias.
And it's important that you know that we are not an organization that is big enough to have our own, movie directors and technical teams that present all of this. So we find people that are willing to do the job with us, going beyond what we are asking them to do. Allow me to take the opportunity to also acknowledge other people that always make us look great, and Javi, the Prisma team, and the whole production team, because they too put a lot of heart in how we look, and I think you can feel it in this room. So thank you very much for acknowledging them, and thank you for the job done. And we go to the next segment, Albert.
Thank you, Emilia. And actually, it's a good transition because we've been seeing this video, we've been talking about anti-racism, and the next speaker I'm going to call will speak about education, which is, we were talking about new essentials this morning, and education is an everlasting essential. It's always crucial, it's always transformative. It always changes, not only with technology as it's very present in our public debate now, it always evaluates. And for us, having with us Marina Canals, the Secretary General of International Association of Educating Cities, is very important today. On the other podium, I will call as well, who will follow, which is Paula Sevilla, housing justice researcher from the International Institute on Environment and Development. She will speak about housing, also a crucial topic in the local social covenant, housing justice, the rights around land, how do we link it with climate resilience? All these topics will follow after the pitch by Marina. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Albert, and thank you, UCLG, for inviting the International Association of Educating Cities to take the floor at this important meeting. And since I was told that I have 3 minutes, I will switch into Spanish to use all the time in the best convenient way. Thank you very much. ¿Cómo es posible que, si aparentemente existe un consenso generalizado acerca de la importancia de la educación, y esta es un derecho universal, hoy siga habiendo en el mundo 258 millones de niños y niñas sin acceso a la educación básica y 773 millones de adultos analfabetos? Aprendemos en la escuela y aprendemos fuera de ella. Así queda recogido en los ODS, en el ODS 4 concretamente. Pero la escuela sigue jugando un papel clave e ineludible en las primeras etapas de la vida de las personas para asentar los pilares del conocimiento, el desarrollo personal y comunitario, siendo clave para combatir la pobreza, promover la igualdad y fomentar la paz. Hoy, numerosos gobiernos locales, muchos estáis aquí reunidos, ¿no?, con vuestras limitadas competencias, algunos tenéis más, otros menos, estáis tomando ya cartas en el asunto y ofreciendo oportunidades educativas y de formación, crecimiento personal, desde multiplicidad de instancias y espacios ciudadanos. Y eso contribuye a reforzar, en algunos casos, estas deficiencias del sistema de la educación formal. Pero esto no salva a los estados de tener que invertir en unos sistemas educativos que garanticen el acceso a la educación de calidad para todos. Nos lo demostró la pandemia, ¿no? Vimos cómo se acentuaban estas desigualdades. Por otro lado, como aspecto positivo, señalaría que esta situación también otorgó un mayor valor a la educación por parte de los gobiernos locales y la sociedad civil. Pero esta mayor inversión en educación se asocia con mejor calidad docente. Si tenemos más recursos, podremos formar mejores profesores. Si tenemos recursos suficientes, podremos tener más y mejores infraestructuras, acceso a la tecnología y menor desigualdad. El PIB que debería dedicar un país en educación debería situarse entre el 4 y el 6% o entre el 15 y el 20% del gasto público. Y todos sabemos que la inversión real en la mayoría de los países está muy por debajo. Es cierto que tenemos algunos ejemplos, algunos champions, pero queda mucho que desear. Partimos de realidades muy diversas. Mientras en unas regiones del mundo la lucha o los retos se centran en disponer de infraestructuras adecuadas, en resolver la falta de profesorado, en corregir las disparidades de género respecto al acceso a la educación, en salvar la brecha digital, en igualar el acceso a la educación infantil. En otras partes del mundo nos encontramos teniendo que motivar al alumnado y luchando contra el abandono escolar. Nos encontramos teniendo que invertir en políticas, lo ha dicho mi predecesora, ¿no?, que promuevan la convivencia, la interculturalidad, la inclusión, asegurando que todos los alumnos tengan igualdad de oportunidades. Nos encontramos también en que muchas veces las diferencias vienen por la oferta formativa extracurricular, complementaria a la educación escolar. En alfabetismo funcional, ¿no?, nos encontramos con jóvenes y adultos incapaces a pesar de saber leer, incapaces de desarrollar de una forma eficiente situaciones en las que se encuentran en la vida. Todas estas desigualdades se suman a otros retos que tenemos en el horizonte. Se suman a nuevos retos derivados del nuevo orden social, porque no solo estamos viviendo una etapa de cambios, sino un cambio de etapa. Tenemos numerosos retos como la globalización, la digitalización, la automatización, y tenemos movimientos sociales que están configurando dinámicas económicas, políticas y sociales y culturales que nos obligan a dar respuesta y adaptar nuestra manera de aprender. Cambios en las estructuras familiares, una baja natalidad, movimientos que luchan por los derechos como la inclusión, el feminismo, la diversidad de género, la justicia racial, la conciencia ambiental. Todo esto va configurando la necesidad de nuevos aprendizajes. La inteligencia artificial y la robótica están reemplazando muchos puestos de trabajo. Tenemos la emergencia de nuevas formas de activismo social y una desconfianza generalizada en las instituciones. Todo esto provoca una crisis en la democracia y el crecimiento de los populismos, como hemos visto, ¿no? Tenemos debates abiertos acerca de la privacidad, de la libertad de las personas, por el uso que hacen los gobiernos y las empresas de nuestros datos para parametrizar a la ciudadanía. Tenemos una crisis climática y una mayor conciencia ecológica que conlleva también regulaciones ambientales. Todo esto por citar algunos de los cambios. Todo esto nos lleva a la necesidad de repensar la educación y la necesidad de llegar a consensos. Aquí lanzo unos cuantos. Pues tenemos que asegurar que la educación sea universal y equitativa para que todos los niños y niñas tengan oportunidades de aprender y desarrollarse plenamente. Necesitamos mejoras en la calidad educativa. Eso se logra a través de la capacitación y la dignificación del trabajo de los docentes, aumentando formación, salarios y condiciones laborales. Necesitamos innovar en la forma de enseñar, menos memorización, más metodologías basadas en la resolución de problemas, pensamiento crítico, diversidad, creatividad. Estos son algunos de los elementos que necesitamos. Necesitamos aprovechar también los avances tecnológicos.
Marina,
sí, más rápido. Ahora entiendo por qué corría tanto mi anterior.
We know it's a hard exercise, 3 minutes.
Sí, hay mucho que decir. Bueno, pues deciros que la educación también es clave para trabajar por la paz, para la creación de entornos seguros. Porque cuando las zonas están afectadas por conflictos humanitarios es muy difícil que la educación no se vea interrumpida. Tenemos la suerte de tener una red donde podemos fomentar valores de cooperación y solidaridad. Aprovechémosla, ¿no? Que existan lugares en el mundo donde los niños y las niñas y los jóvenes y las personas adultas no pueden acceder a la educación. no es solo un problema regional o personal, es nuestro problema también. La educación no es un privilegio, sino un derecho fundamental que nos da la llave para adquirir otros derechos. Y si esto no fuera un argumento suficiente, os diría que los problemas, vivimos en un mundo interconectado y los problemas que afectan a una región, lo vimos con la pandemia, afectan a otras. Y invertir en educación es invertir en el progreso global, en sociedades más equitativas y en un futuro con más oportunidades. Si un menor no tiene acceso a la educación, este es un adulto que tendrá menos oportunidades, lo que perpetuará ciclos de pobreza, desigualdad, violencia, y no solo afectará a esa comunidad, sino que generará consecuencias globales. Deciros que voy muy rápido y saltándome cosas, así que nosotros lo que proponemos es, en un contexto mundial actual que nos ofrece pues, elementos esperanzadores, mayor conectividad, podemos hacer que la educación sea más accesible y podemos trabajar para que este pacto entre gobiernos, organismos internacionales, gobiernos locales, familias, docentes, empresas, ciudadanía en general, pueda contribuir a que todos los niños y los jóvenes, incluso los adultos, puedan tener oportunidades para aprender, crecer y aportar al mundo. Solo así construiremos un futuro más justo y sostenible. Gracias.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you, and that link between the kids of today are the adults of tomorrow looks a lot to the overall theme of this retreat and this intergenerational dialogue, so thank you. And we know the exercise is very challenging. To speed up a bit things, I will already call on stage Carlos de Freitas, who is Executive Director of the Global Fund for Cities Development, so he's ready once Paula finishes with the housing theme. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. So I'm here to talk about a topic that has touched all of us, which is housing. I don't think it's necessary for me to emphasize the importance of housing, as I'm sure many of us have struggled with accessing housing at some point in our lives. But I will pick up talking about the challenge, about 2 points that have been raised these past couple of days that I think summarize the importance of housing in this pact. One of them is one thing that came up this morning, which is this realization that the lack of delivery is leading to a breakdown of trust in our societies. And housing is more than a symbol, it's actually a physical manifestation of that breakdown of the social trust, of the social contract. Housing systems and dominant housing models are failing to deliver for people and for the planet. The other point I want to make is one that Emilia has been emphasizing a lot this week, which is that we have somehow accepted inequality as a base of our model. We've accepted injustice, and that should enrage all of us. And this is because, while here we accept that housing is a fundamental right, actually housing, in the way that it has been promoted by dominant models, has very often prioritized profit over people. It has prioritized housing's role as a profitable investment rather than a fundamental right and an entry point to other social, economic, and cultural rights. So this is actually making housing kind of stay off the map sometimes. We see it very strongly in the pact, in the UCLG Pact for the Future, but actually in the Pact for the Future, the UN Pact for the Future is only mentioned once, and that's largely thanks to the restless advocacy of UCLG and other partners. So how do we bring it back on the agenda and we actually deliver? We're proposing a housing justice framework for this, and housing justice really means restoring the social fabric through housing at the center of policies. And so what does this mean for us that we do think of housing as a fundamental right? I want to propose four ways of thinking about housing justice, and this is something that has come up from listening to all partners, from listening to local governments, to UCLG, to other partners. And so this reflects what many of you here are already doing, but perhaps it's a useful way of thinking about it, of framing it, and taking it to action. So housing justice promotes anti-discriminatory policy and housing policy and practice. This is means recognizing that housing systems come from a legacy of inequalities, discrimination, colonization, patriarchal models that mean that some people are affected by the housing crisis in a different way than others. And so local governments have a very important role to play in advancing anti-discriminatory policy because they have a more nuanced approach at policy. We were talking earlier this morning about data and the importance of targeted policies, and local governments are very well positioned to do that. And we were talking about anti-racism just before, and there are plenty of examples of local governments taking this on. A second point is promoting radically democratic housing policy. Yesterday, someone mentioned local governments as the guardians of democracy, and I think this is very, very important when it comes to housing policies, because local governments are able to recognize, protect, and fulfill the right to housing for people. But they can do that also through participatory mechanisms. They can do that through the recognition of what communities themselves are doing to provide housing when housing systems are not delivering. They can encourage, whether it's through financing, through regulations, through other forms of policies, non-speculative processes of housing production. And so it's very important for us to continue doing that. Barcelona's cooperatives are a key example. The third point is that housing justice promotes housing as an infrastructure for fairer, more sustainable, and of course, caring cities. This means using different policy tools, and I'm actually interested in hearing what kind of policy tools people in the room have used, including proximity-based planning models and financing and regulation to connect housing to public service delivery, to environmental protection, to disaster reduction. And so thinking about housing as an entry point and a cornerstone of these broader societal policies. And then the fourth pillar of the housing justice framework is policy that broadens imaginations for housing futures. This means thinking outside of traditional or dominant housing models to think about where can housing knowledge come from. And a big theme of this year has been youth. So please look at youth for housing solutions, but also culture, and not just new, but past traditions. So with that, just a call to action is an initiative that I invite you all to join, which is the Hub for Housing Justice. I see many familiar faces in the room. We have very important partners that launched the Hub for Housing Justice with us. We have Habitat International Coalition, SDI, Habitat for Humanity, and of course, UCLG. And it's a collaborative initiative to come together to co-design these housing justice agenda, curate, share resources, align advocacy efforts, including in the World Social Summit, and facilitate opportunities for learning. So I'm happy to talk more about that and give you more information, but I'm looking forward to all your thoughts. Thank you.
Many thanks, Paula, for transmitting that precondition that housing is to achieve social justice and the importance of crossing justice and housing as a main element of this social covenant, especially when we go to the reality in our communities and how housing defines a whole system of services around it and how this is the way to make communities thrive. I will now give the floor to Carlos de Freitas to speak of an even more complicated topic to resume in 3 minutes, which is finance. But before that, I will already call to stage to Francesco Cagnola from the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, who will speak on food systems right after. And be ready, because after that, we will open the floor again and ask the room on the pitches that have been presented so far.
Thank you, Albert. Just before I begin, someone lost his key for the room in the hotel. I don't know if it's an invitation, but you didn't leave your name, no number, so I will not be there. No, so I don't think I understood the exercise of the pitching, because I think I got lost in my notes. No, I think that the conversation this morning was really good, and I need to thank Billy, because what he said about being tactical is very important now. We have come a long way. I think since even the creation of FMDV 15 years ago, the understanding of what localizing finance means now is more or less spread all along the financing value chain. So we have a lot more interest on the topic. We are not just talking about local finance, but localizing finance, integrating better local and regional governments in the financing value chains, not just only as clients, as I was saying on Monday, but also as leaders, leading transformation on the system, trying to bring other kind of instruments, solutions, etc. And this has been achieved especially through the climate agenda. And I think that one key component of our conversation here about the local social covenant is to discuss the social pillar of sustainable development, which has been somehow shadowed in the context of the UN discussions, because basically poverty, inequalities, nobody cares. But with climate, neoliberalism system, the wealthiest part of the population felt threatened by the changes institutionally, in terms of investments, security and safety. And this has changed a lot the way the UN processes have been accelerating for action, bringing multi-stakeholders to the table, etc., which we didn't succeed with Sustainable Development Agenda. And that's important to take into account in our conversation to see what it means when we talk about this social summit, what it means when we talk about caring economy, caring finance. And you know, I've been an advocate of social and solidarity economy and finance for many years, many decades now, because I'm getting old. But this is very key. We are at a point, we stand at a point where, yes, at the global level, we have recognition of the place of local and regional governments. At the table, we are invited more or less, depending on the conferences, but did our conversations land at the local level and at the national level? And we can see this translated in the financing discussions. National development banks, subnational development banks are now in the documents like key stakeholders in the landing of all the global policies and the transformation of our systems. And this is where local and regional governments need to work more and better to understand what it means to talk about finance at the national level, what it means to engage with your national government and not only look for funding and financing with international players that are present in your country. And we still have a lot to do for national associations to better understand this, better understand what we are talking about when we talk about finance. Not only the instruments, fiscal autonomy, blah, 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 capital markets. It doesn't mean a thing if you don't have the system in place, the financial engineering capacity. And we need to have that public financial engineering. If we don't have this, we cannot transform the system. This is very key. It's investments in human capital, but it's not only this. We need to understand that there is no limit to financial engineering. So we can reverse everything that is has been done along the 80s and the 90s on the neoliberalism, and we can do it, but we need to act now and with this conscience of the fact that we don't have the engineers we need. We don't have the country platforms on localizing finance that we need. You will hear in the coming weeks, in the preparation of FFD4, the Conference on Financing for Development, a lot of concepts that are now spread all along, again, the financing value chain, like these country platforms. But if you look in the detail, these country platforms are in their governance, the way they have been structured, what they are aiming at the end of the day is not somehow to put the social at the center of the conversation, but just to maintain the status quo about the vested interests of the investors, on even including the public development banks. So we need to renew the way we connect on these topics with the players of this financing value chain. Just to because we don't have a lot of time. We are pilot testing these country platforms in Cameroon, in Madagascar, together with UCLG and with the support of the European Union. We are working on this public financial engineering with the promotion of the financial hubs at the national level. We are trying to support financial intermediaries, subnational development banks that do understand the needs, the kind of instruments that local and regional governments need. But we need to politically make sure that these solutions, these ways to change the system while we are within the system get more visibility. That's one side. The caring economy, the caring finance, the discussion on social and solidarity economy and finance, we need to make sure that this marginalized topic becomes something that is owned by the mayors and governors and the national associations, because often we talk about those solutions, but they are not integrated in the real toolbox at the local level. And we need to promote them, explain them better than we did in the past, because we failed in this. The caring economy and finance, it's a new wording for social and solidarity economy and finance, basically. But it's good because it brings a new way for players that didn't want to hear or listen about SSEF. So I'm okay with that, even though intellectually I'm like, okay, it's been 30 years that we've been talking about that, but it's okay. And Anna, I'm expecting a lot from you. So please work better and more with us on this, because it's important, and with RIPES here present. And the last component is, again, we need to localize. This conversation has to land. Yes, I know. But this is very important, that you think that this conversation needs to be really happening at the local level with ministries of finance, ministries of urban development. We don't work enough with them. They don't know what we're talking about. Even them, they are lost in conversation on these topics. And with ministries of environment and climate, because they are the ones who will get all the funding. And we need this to be redirected to the urbanization processes if we want the social part of the pillar of our conversation to be strengthened. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. And I will add only to your remarks also a space that is co-convened by UCLG and C40, which is the Urban 20, the official engagement group of cities to the G20, where FMDB, together with other partners in the room, is a very active contributor and long-standing partner. It's also an interesting space to discuss with finance ministers, but also to bring the conversation at the national level between cities and their national governments every year in the G20 cycle. I will move now with Francesco Cagnola on food systems. Francesco, when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Albert. Thank you very much, UCLG, for inviting us, and thank you very much, Kader, for making this happen. Food is an essential. In the morning, we were talking about new essential. Food has always been an essential. And when humans are lucky, they eat 3 times a day. And these lucky humans don't even know, probably, where the food they eat is coming from. When humans are not lucky, they are hungry or malnourished. Food insecurity is an increasing pressing problem, and it is exacerbated by growing inequalities, climate crisis, inflation, overconsumption of resources such as soil and water. And unlike humans are going to be growing in numbers if we don't halt the climate implications that the way we produce food is currently having. And the reason why we are doing so is because we prioritize short-term profits over long-term well-being of communities and ecosystems. We need systemic change, so we need to approach food as a system in order to halt hunger and avoid the food system to contribute any further to the degeneration of our planet. And I'm not choosing the words by chance, who holds the resources to keep us fed? We need regenerative food systems. Most people live in cities. That's why local and regional governments are uniquely positioned to tackle these challenges. And that's why the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact exists. It was launched in 2015 and is a voluntary agreement of mayors which sponsors a framework for action of 37 categories and be divided in 35 recommended action divided in 6 categories, which are government, sustainable diets, social equality, food production, supply chains, and food waste. And now we have more than 300 signatory cities in our network. And some of the ways cities can change things in regards of food system are through their public procurement to give to children in our schools nutritious and sustainable produced food, food aid processes and projects, tax levels, so taxing certain things or detaxing certain things, managing their water ecosystem, wholesale markets, farmer markets, urban-rural linkages. So as Milan Pact, we join and we look forward to work with UCLG in their call for better governance, collaboration among international organizations, as well as on horizontal side, different departments in different municipalities and governments have to work together, and vertical governments. Municipalities, provinces, regions, states, international organizations have to work together to achieve sustainable and inclusive food systems. Furthermore, we have the need for creating financial mechanisms to fund all these projects that we are in need for to have better food systems. Furthermore, we have to recognize food security as a human right and its systemic implication. We have to work together. We won't get tired on saying that. And finally, we have to transform international trade and subsidy so local food systems are considered and supported. We look forward to work on this together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francesco. And I would like to give the floor now a bit of as a reaction to this speech on food systems to Anna Fauché from Let's Food to complement your intervention. Many thanks for highlighting the importance of local food systems, territorial food systems, and their link to multi-level and multi-stakeholder action. Thank you.
How does it work? Okay. Hello, everybody. If it's okay, I will continue in French because I find it really nice to hear all these languages. Donc bonjour à tous, merci pour l'invitation. Je vais être rapide aussi parce que finalement Francesco a exposé les principaux termes du débat et surtout a présenté les enjeux en termes de système alimentaire à l'échelle locale. Donc nous, on est une association française, on travaille en France et à l'étranger, on accompagne des collectivités locales et notamment Aman que je vois ici, donc je salue aussi, sur la construction de politique alimentaire territoriale, depuis la production jusqu'à la gestion des déchets. Effectivement, on croit beaucoup au rôle des collectivités locales sur les questions alimentaires, sachant qu'il n'y a pas beaucoup de collectivités locales qui disposent de compétences spécifiques sur les questions d'alimentation. Et pourtant, il y a beaucoup de leviers qu'elles peuvent mobiliser, donc pour protéger les terres, installer des agriculteurs, développer des circuits courts, mettre des produits locaux, bio dans les cantines, valoriser le gaspillage, limiter le gaspillage alimentaire et valoriser les déchets, et encore accompagner les consommateurs vers une production locale. On a travaillé avec CGLU et notamment avec Kader sur une publication depuis quelques années qui nous a amené donc à développer ce projet-là. L'idée, c'était de montrer aussi que les collectivités locales vont parfois bien plus loin que les États pour lutter contre l'insécurité alimentaire et font des propositions assez innovantes qui changent un petit peu du système d'aide alimentaire qui était censé être ponctuel et qui était censé être d'urgence et dans lequel finalement on s'enfonce de façon assez permanente et avec une insécurité alimentaire grandissante. Donc on a construit une publication avec 10 cas d'études à travers le monde avec CGLU pour montrer un petit peu ce que faisaient les territoires en termes d'innovation. Donc à la fois sur des leviers d'agriculture urbaine, ça peut être à Amman ou ça peut être à Tana, ça peut être sur l'agro-tourisme aussi, ça peut être sur les cantines scolaires, donc, ou encore des filets de sécurité alimentaire qui sont en train de se développer à Montpellier. Je ne reviendrai pas sur les recommandations parce qu'elles croisent celles du pacte de Milan, mais peut-être juste pour dire qu'on est en train de développer un nouveau projet pour faire un outil de formation en ligne, un MOOC, avec CGLU. On a déjà fait aussi un webinaire, donc vous pourrez retrouver ce MOOC à destination des collectivités locales avec l'idée d'inspirer et de faire connaître des initiatives qui fonctionnent à partir d'avril. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, because this builds on everything that we are doing as a network already to each of the pillars of the covenant, and where we have as well the multilateral strategies around these pillars. Colleagues, the floor is open. We are still missing 2 pitches, one on climate justice and the other on conflict prevention, and then we will go again to an open floor with a regional perspective. I don't know if you think that we're missing something, which is the care perspective, that it's everywhere in our agenda. The Pact for the Future came to our reality because after COVID, we have a mandate to bring the caring systems and the care perspective to every single act of what we do as a network. And our values remain the same, but through what Emilia always says, the key to open a different door of what we are as a movement. So for this, we have the Global Alliance of Care in the room, and the floor is open, Ana, but this is asking Ana Moreno to take the floor now, and then we will try to complement a bit. But the Global Alliance of Care is portrayed as one of our coalitions, and also the Caring Territories is one of the cross-cutting axes of all that we are talking about. So Ana, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be here, to see old faces and new friends. And thank you for being part of the Global Alliance for Care. UCLG is one of the members of the management committee of the now 260 members that since 2022 are trying to work together to put care at the center of the Sustainable Development Agenda. I would like mainly to perhaps highlight some things that I have heard this morning and this afternoon in terms of not to bring, new ideas, but perhaps to highlight those ones that I feel that are important. One was the comment from Daria about the new essentials not being new. I totally agree with that. I think they are not new, but we are trying to change the shift, to shift the vision on that. And Emilia has mentioned that. No? They have always been there, but they have not been co-responsible, not always have been something in the center of the public policy, the government, the private sector, the civil society. As you know, mostly have been done by women. So that is something completely new. There is always, obviously, the context, the demographic shift that Billy was also talking this morning. The global south, it's migrating to the global north, and the care is at the center of that migration, and again, mainly by women. So other reasons, obviously, but I just want to put the care perspective. And then there are different dimensions in the care agenda. Daria has also mentioned the workers. Care is so valuable for us, but we are always underpaying it, undervaluing it, not recognizing it. So there is a whole perspective of the workers that it's a really important one. And PSI is a member of the Global Alliance, as well as other trade unions that are working really hard to ensure that there is decent work and it's a paid and a valued work all over the world. So that's one thing that I want to mention. The other one is something that Maria Fernanda also mentioned. It's a really interesting agenda because it's multidimensional, it's intergenerational. It brings a lot of us on the table. It's for young people, it's for people with children, it's for people with disabilities, it's for older people. So it should be inclusive in the approach. And that's something that we also would like to put on the added value of the Global Alliance for Care. It's intersectional, it's related to migration, to climate change. It has this kind of spaces for talking about it, not disagreeing about it. And we believe it's a really interesting space. And it has been like this for the last years, but we believe that it will help us in the next years in the current context. My last comment, and then I will just put two things there, but my last comment, it's something that has also been mentioned by Emilia. It's how we approach it. And we want, again, to repeat the revolution of the care blocks. It's not, and it's the utopias in Mexico City and some other examples that you are developing in your cities. The revolution is not to build a care block or a care infrastructure, not at all. The revolution is that there is a mayor that looks at data in a different approach and with a different perspective than in the previous mandate, let's go to say. So the mayor of Bogota put data to poverty, mainly women. Why? Time poverty. How? And all this approach is, for me, the revolution. And I mentioned it last year, and I still convinced that it's a really revolutionary approach. The laundry services in the care blocks is something brilliant. But it's so simple that it's kind of not valued. But it's really brilliant because it puts at the center the reality, and there is a local service that is provided that puts a person that mainly is woman, saves time, provides water, not only time, provides even human resources. So what I'm trying to say is that the revolution is not always in what is visible. The revolution is in the invisibility. And my last comment on the
Yes, the last one, please.
On the invisibility is the legal frameworks. We are usually talking about a lot of the aspects that the care agenda and the care economy is bringing. But there are legal instruments behind it sometimes where we can be creative. And the care blocks, one of the innovations is that is embedded in the master plan for the next decades. And I think it's important to consider that short term, medium term, something that Billy was mentioning. Do something that it's in your competencies, that you can do it in your mandate, that is feasible, that you have the budget and you have the human resources to do it, and then ensure the long term, perhaps with legal frameworks, that you can ensure that it's not changed when the political shift is there. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And this is what we are trying to do with the high-level political commitments, that actually we can commit to do what we will be calling for. Former Mayor of Bogota always said that we are not born knowing how to care, that we need to learn to care. And this is something that we're trying to learn as a movement, and this is part of our strategy. So on this, very briefly, Cecile Roth, in terms of how we're bringing the care perspective into the local social covenant, because many times mainstreaming this or cross-cutting sounds like if we were not doing it, but we will try to bring care into every single political commitment.
Yeah, and it's in the end very easy to see it in all the interventions for today. I think this is really like the common point, and also what like the entry point, and also what points us towards the revolution that you've mentioned, right, Anna? So very quickly also, because I think it helps as like the background for the local social covenant, I'd like to highlight that obviously care has always been through like and understood as equity in public service provision at the heart of the priorities of the municipal movement, and like this historically. But then with COVID, it really came at the forefront of our priorities, and very explicitly. So that's why also we had care at the core of the COVID-19 decalogue. This is also where like the origins of care at the heart of our UCLG path for the future. So for people, for planet, and for government. And then we continue building on that mandate, this political mandate. So we also had care at the center of the local SDG rescue plan, and now guiding us towards the local social covenant. And maybe just one addition to the discussion is also seeing care as not only the basis for services and policies, but also as a basis for rethinking our governance systems. So how to envision caring this and planning care in a democratic way. So I'd say that is it for us.
Thank you, Cecile. Thank you very much. Is it working? Yeah, no. We will move now to the last two pitches that will present the thematic pillars of our local social covenant. We will start by Alison Curtis, Deputy Executive Director of a Strong Cities Network, who will present the work on local conflict prevention. Alison, whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The local social covenant towards preventing conflict recognises that cities and local governments are central to peace building, democracy inclusion, and crucially conflict prevention. And it establishes local conflict prevention as a precondition for a renewed global agenda for justice and sustainability. Now, I'm going to use my 3 minutes, and I'm only going to speak for 3 minutes, to say why this is important, yes, but to actually unpack what is in the covenant, because I think this is so exciting. I think it's achievable, and I want people to know what is actually in the covenant, just in case you haven't read it. So globally, we are at a defining moment for sure, one marked by increasing geopolitical instability and unpredictability, rising polarization, protectionism and nationalism, and successive, concurrent, and cascading global and national crises, the impacts of which are being felt acutely in our cities, and I don't need to tell anyone in this room that. From rising hate, extremism, and social division, to economic inequality, housing shortages, and climate-driven displacement, straining already fragile infrastructure, the erosion of trust in and rising fear of people, of government, of change, and an online environment where people are increasingly turning to a virtual world to find belonging and connection, and where hate, misinformation, and conspiracies are really fueling real-world harms. The cumulative effect of these forces on the health, well-being, and cohesion of our cities and our communities is profound. It creates an environment where tensions can and are quickly escalating into conflict. But these are not insurmountable challenges. They don't have to be. Cities, and this is where sort of comes in our opportunity and the Covenant's call to action. Cities are not just where tensions arise and conflict is experienced. They can be where conflict is prevented, trust rebuilt, and peace sustained. Now, the local social covenant towards preventative conflict provides a framework for achieving this. I think it does. By embedding peace-building principles into urban planning, public services, and governance structures, cities can become leaders in conflict prevention and models of resilience and coexistence. The Covenant prioritises or articulates three key elements. First, promoting inclusive governance and civic participation. We need to ensure that youth, women, and marginalised communities in particular, but I would add all residents and all communities, are empowered and have opportunities to play meaningful roles in shaping the local policies that affect them. We need to ensure equality and sustainable development as infrastructure for peace. So we need to address some of the challenges that we've heard here today. Systemic inequalities in education. We need to have equal economic opportunity and public services to prevent tensions from escalating into conflict. And third, we need to address the hate and divisive narratives that are destabilising our societies. We need to build and foster societies that celebrate diversity rather than fear it. And we need to teach our children and the younger generations about critical thinking. We need to invest in digital literacy. With the right frameworks, resources and partnerships, cities can lead inclusive governance and sustainable peace efforts. What this covenant makes clear is that the future of conflict prevention is local. It is a bold but very achievable step towards rethinking urban governance, not just as a tool for managing and responding to crises and conflicts, but as a foundation for conflict prevention and sustainable peace. At Strong Cities, we're already seeing mayors evaluate the environment that they find themselves in, and proactively embracing their role in prevention, often without a specific mandate to do so. They see the threats their cities are facing and are finding ways to engage their communities and show great leadership on prevention. They are not waiting for a top-down approach. Imagine what would happen if we institutionalised this covenant to scale and make possible local prevention for conflict. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison, for your call to action, but also for your ambition and for the way that you have presented the preventive nature that the dimension of local governments can present and can apply to conflict, and how we deal with conflict way before it erupts, and how do we deal with it when it erupts in our communities through education, through social inclusion, and through democratic participation. Thank you. I will now give the floor to our last but not least panelist today, which is Sofia Torres from the Global Platform for the Right to the City, who will present on climate justice. Sofia, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Albert. Thanks, everyone. So I'd like to start making reference to what Pablo was saying, that things are not being invented today, that we have a track record, and just to say that I'd like to remind everyone that climate justice is being claimed and defended by many groups and communities, but also and to remember how last year it was also acknowledged on the Declaration for Future Generations annexed to the Pact for the Future. It's a small starting point, but it's a starting point that we have to consider. But there's still lots of room to claim and explain what we mean by climate justice. I'm not gonna delve into that because I think lots has been said this week already. But in a nutshell, we are talking about the fact that the climate crisis doesn't happen in a vacuum. It cannot be decoupled by the processes, economic and consumption of production and consumption, economic systems that create the structural, social, economic, gender, racial, and spatial inequalities that we see today. So this also means that climate action cannot be decoupled from reducing those structural inequalities, which gives us a duty and a mandate as well to reclaiming what climate action is and saying that climate action that exacerbates those inequalities is not a solution, is a false solution. This speaks, for example, to climate or sustainable projects that fuel direct and indirect displacement. But this is an opportunity to really reclaim what climate action is through climate justice and how climate action is driven. And we see an opportunity for local and regional governments to contribute and lead this discussion, speaking to the many layers of climate action, starting from crisis response when we look at the discussion on loss and damages, but also the adaptation agenda when we see how social and territorial inequalities have produced differentiated impacts and how those, can you hear me? Sorry, have to be addressed. But also, again, to the point on mitigation, looking at solutions that not exacerbate existent inequalities, but rather reduce them and respond to them. So this speaks a lot to the discussion on protecting the commons that was alluded this morning. And perhaps when we talk about protecting the commons, this makes more sense and makes us think it's more intuitive when we talk about protecting an ecosystem of degradation, but it should be intuitive as well when we talk about protecting those essentials that we are talking about, how we protect them and make them truly accessible for all and not subject to profitability. And again, I think many reflections have been made today on these points. And so just to close a little bit on this, on some examples on what we talk about, what can be climate justice from a local and regional government's perspective, and how it can be driven. If we pass to the next slide, I just put some slides for reference, and many of what I'm going to speak and cite come from these publications that I invite you to take a look at. It's very important that when we talk about climate justice, we know that we are talking about climate justice when we talk about the role of waste pickers, for example, on waste collection and recycling, when we talk about integral and informal settlement upgrading that ensures access to basic services and reduces climate vulnerabilities, tapping into community knowledge and mobilization, the use of public tendering, and to work with social and solidarity economy agroecology enterprises to provide school lunches and hospital meals. That we are talking about climate justice, for example, when we see that Montevideo is using existing housing stock at the city center to provide affordable housing and has a climate and social justice impact in the sense that not only we are not seeing the flux from peripheries to center with a climate mobility impact, but we also acknowledge that the construction sectors creates 37% of global emissions by the consumption in buildings, but also in the construction of the buildings in itself. And a final word on what we talk about when we talk about the how. First, again, to acknowledge what was being talked about in terms of metrics, going beyond GDP. And here again, I would like to mention quickly displacement. We are looking ahead on an IPCC special report on cities. We have to tension some of the concepts there and beyond. We see in the outline, for example, mentions to relocation. We have to take this with a grain of salt. What do we mean when we talk about relocation and when we are talking about solutions? But also ending with a note that there is no climate justice without deepening the democracy. And when we talk about this, we are going beyond participation, beyond meaningful participation. We are landing on co-production that for us is translated on public-community partnerships. And to say that this kind of collaboration has to be taken into account and inform the access to finance and the funds that we have for climate. Thank you very much.
Well, I started this retreat saying what a world, and I am finishing it saying what a week. Yeah, I mean, there are so many things that we are learning together and so many issues that are coming up. I identify with what Daria and Anna were saying. I mean, it's not about how new they are, but about the different eyes that we are using to look at them. And so, open floor for you diehards that are still here. Open floor, but I'm going to provoke someone. Greg, we haven't talked about children yet, not yet. And we know that in our partnership in Cities Alliance, we feel we need to pay more attention specifically to children. So maybe, I mean, obviously you can use the microphone in any way you want, but maybe a word on children as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Emilia. So we participate in something called the Cities for Children Coalition, which is about 30 organizations, which includes UCLG. But I just want to quickly go back to what Billy spoke about, the demographic changes and the aging population in Asia. If you look at sub-Saharan Africa at the moment, 45% of the population is under the age of 15 and under. And if you go into informal settlements in urban areas where there's greater poverty, that proportion is even higher. So the average age at the moment in sub-Saharan Africa across all the countries is 18.5 years. That's the average age of the continent. So the coalition seeks to collaborate to say, how do we integrate children's needs within urban spaces? And it's about collection of information, it's about advocacy, but importantly, it's about how do you get programming. So this is really, I think we need to keep, if we're talking about the Pact for the Future and the caring agenda, You know, we've got to keep 50% of the population in our poorer areas on the agenda of the caring system. And so we will probably reach out to the UCLG membership and stakeholders over time and say, you know, how, you know, we would like to work through local government and say, you know, what are your needs? And understand local government needs. Because we can talk about it, but I actually think we need to do something about it. And it's not just, you know, it's great having the intergenerational dialogue, which has been the highlight of the week, but it's also there's the group of people that are too young to have a dialogue and who have very, very basic needs that we are maybe not taking into account. So I just want to put that on the agenda on behalf of the Cities for Children Coalition.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very good point, and a dimension that we probably need to add to the local social covenant. It has to do with the demographic issue that Billy was raising this morning as well. So thank you very much for bringing that up. Spot on. Allow me to make the link between what we were saying about conflict prevention, some of the examples that Sofia were using about housing. We've got the mayor of Montevideo is with us. Le quiero dar la palabra, intendente, para que nos comparta cómo se ve Montevideo dentro de este pacto. Son muchos los temas que hemos abordado esta tarde y en casi todos esos temas hay política pública de Montevideo. Entonces, una visión desde donde usted está.
Bien, buenas tardes a todas y a todos. Es cierto, en realidad parte de las introducciones, de los temas que fueron generando y planteándose a lo largo de la tarde, tienen que ver con el desarrollo de políticas públicas, sobre todo pensando en una mirada hacia el desarrollo y hacia cómo tener que generar desde temas culturales, temas de antirracismo, financiación. Es decir, hay una gama de vivienda también, educación, que tienen que ver con cómo planteamos en la lógica de la política pública. Y yo creo que ahí el principal objetivo o los principales elementos tienen que tener que la política, ¿cuál es el objetivo central que uno persigue cuando lleva adelante esquemas de política pública? Tienen que tener en el marco el desarrollo de la disminución de las desigualdades. Que las desigualdades son parte de las generaciones de nuestras violencias cotidianas y que a partir de la política pública uno puede corregir esas desigualdades de forma tal de que se logren avanzar hacia esos temas. Pensar lógicas de prevención de conflictos en términos urbanos, de cómo se planifica la ciudad, de cómo es la disputa por el derecho del uso del suelo, que básicamente tiene generaciones y elementos de conflicto cuando uno no puede acceder por las vías formales a los mecanismos de acceso y por lo tanto termina generando ocupaciones irregulares del uso del suelo. Bueno, el otro día Fabiana planteaba un poco la experiencia sobre la cartera de tierras. Claramente tiene una situación de tensión en ese marco y son básicamente aquellos hogares, aquellas personas más necesitadas, aquellas que tienen que recurrir a esos mecanismos. Entonces, creo que la política pública tiene que pensarse en esta lógica de disminución de las desigualdades y de esa manera poder generar esto que planteábamos. Bueno, ¿cómo generar un mecanismo que incluya a todas y a todos? ¿Quiénes son los más desfavorecidos hoy? ¿Son las infancias? Sí. ¿Son las mujeres? También. ¿Son los colectivos minoritarios? También. Y eso es parte también de cómo, pudiendo hacer políticas también direccionadas hacia esos sectores, efectivamente se logren avanzar en ese marco. Creo que esta discusión sobre el tema de hacia dónde y cómo vamos en ese marco de prevenciones de conflictos urbanos y generamos sociedades más armónicas, compatibles y además integradas, es un desafío para la política pública. En ese marco es parte de lo que queremos llevar adelante con las distintas acciones que puntualmente podemos ir comentando, pero por un tema de tiempo no lo voy a hacer antes que me cortes, Emilia. Pero creo que tiene que pensarse en esa lógica. cómo poder fomentar. Y para esto me parece que también es importante que nuestros gobiernos, y en particular los gobiernos locales, tengan definiciones políticas claras hacia cómo tener que llevar esto. Por ejemplo, definirnos antirracistas, definirnos feministas, definirnos a favor de un proyecto y un proceso de igualdad. Y creo que eso es parte también de lo que hemos venido queriendo hacer desde Montevideo.
Muchísimas gracias, Intendente. Un aplauso para él. Yo creo que no hay persona en esta sala, pero también estos que han estado con nosotros estos días, que no estén de acuerdo que no solo hay intención, sino acción en Montevideo. Forma parte de ese programa largo que ha venido llevando a cabo distintas administraciones de Montevideo y creo que ese es el tipo de legado que queremos dejar con el Foro de Ciudades y Territorios de Paz que vamos a celebrar en Montevideo, ¿no? Que enlaza muy bien con lo que decía Alison hace un momento. A propósito, os tengo que recordar, I need to remind you all that the draft commitments of the covenant are in UCLG meets, so in the inputs that have been prepared for this meeting. And obviously, we need to talk them out with you, they need to go under revision, we need to do consultations and all of those things, but there is a material there. And what I like about what Alison was saying is that it's achievable. I mean, and it's achievable because cities like Montevideo have been doing that. It's achievable. So thank you very much for that and for making the link as well with the forum, but also for wanting to host the forum. The new peace agenda needs to have a very strong local component if we want it to be sustainable, and so there is no question about that. I'm going to give the floor to Christophe Chailloux from our French association and currently senator of France. Bienvenue, Christophe. Un gusto siempre tenerte con nosotros. And then I will go to Jordi. Christophe.
Merci, Madame la Secrétaire Générale, chère Emilia. Peut-être pour réagir, y compris de cette journée débat, pour saluer le fait que CGLU se saisisse pleinement de cette thématique qui est essentielle. Je ne sais pas comment on traduit d'ailleurs le care en français, c'est difficile. C'est les soins, mais c'est pas assez large. Donc c'est une vraie difficulté, mais c'est un sujet essentiel. Et le fait que les collectivités locales doivent se saisir de façon extrêmement urgente de ce qui est un défi majeur sur une grande partie de nos continents et notamment dans un certain nombre de nos pays, parce qu'on peut agir concrètement pour essayer de répondre à ces défis, parce qu'il y a des choix très difficiles à faire. Le vieillissement de la population, les évolutions démographiques font qu'il y a de plus en plus de besoins, qu'il y a des vraies difficultés de financement. Donc, quelles sont les priorités? Et donc, c'est une dimension extrêmement humaine. Et donc, le fait que CGLU se saisisse pleinement de ce sujet, avec des échanges extrêmement intéressants, c'est essentiel. Et puis, je veux aussi ajouter une dimension qui est difficile et qui impose sans doute aux collectivités d'agir pleinement. C'est que dans un certain nombre de nos pays européens, je parle de l'Europe, et dans mon pays, notamment la France, quand on regarde aujourd'hui les personnes qui concrètement agissent pour les soins, beaucoup de femmes dans des situations extrêmement précaires et difficiles, et beaucoup de personnes qui viennent d'autres pays, de l'immigration. C'est une réalité aujourd'hui. Si nous n'avions pas dans un certain nombre de nos services publics, l'hôpital, les maisons de retraite, un certain nombre de secteurs sociaux, des personnes qui viennent d'ailleurs, qui apportent leur travail, leur savoir-faire, nous ne pourrions pas faire fonctionner. Et dans le même temps, nos citoyens sont de plus en plus tentés par des discours d'exclusion, de racisme contre l'immigration. Et donc je pense qu'on a une responsabilité énorme, concrètement dans nos collectivités, pour dire, mais regardez, si nous n'accueillons pas ces personnes, qui va s'occuper de nos anciens, de nos enfants, des personnes malades? Et donc il y a vraiment, me semble-t-il, en termes de valeurs, à la fois une responsabilité énorme pour mettre en œuvre des politiques, mais aussi pour démontrer concrètement que, y compris l'immigration, dans un certain nombre de pays, c'est une richesse, c'est une nécessité, et il n'y a pas d'autre perspective. Donc bravo pour le travail que vous faites et tous les encouragements pour la suite.
Merci. Merci bien pour cet à propos, mais c'est vrai que ce matin, on a parlé exactement de ça. C'était Billy Cobbett qui a soulevé la question démographique. Hein, et la grande pression démographique, il y a une seule réponse, c'est la migration, c'est la mobilité humaine. Il n'y a pas une autre réponse. Donc, merci pour ça et aussi de partager cet intérêt pour les soins qui en fait c'est le connecteur de tous les autres sujets qu'on a abordés aujourd'hui, je pense. Il y a une connexion là à faire qu'on peut faire à travers les soins. Et les soins, c'est vraiment quelque chose qu'on peut traduire très très facilement en service public. Il s'agit de ça, non? La politique publique. Merci bien pour ça. Jordi, I'm coming to you. Jordi Baquet, from the Secretary General of our section, Metropolis. Care is also very much at the heart of your agenda. It's not by coincidence. The mayor of Bogotá, the former mayor of Bogotá, was your president. So she was giving a lot of force to that. Some perspectives on the covenant as a whole and maybe on care in particular. Thank you, Jordi.
Thank you. Yeah. So 1 year ago, in this retreat, we were presenting our care campaign, and we showed video, and we said we really are now in a moment where the concept is out there, and more cities are asking, yes, but how? Right? Okay, we like the idea, it sounds good. How do we do this? So we've been out there. We've been having seminars in the Middle East and in Africa. We've been discussing. We've been struggling with the translations to French and other languages.
I fully identify with what Christophe was saying.
But we've also been part of the Wenju Award and seeing how more and more of the proposals that were assessed there had this concept either formulated or implicit in them. We've also been part of the first International Fund for Metropolises, which is precisely focused on care, precisely with the migration accent, and receiving wonderful proposals from many parts of the world. And I can tell everyone, first of all, that the concept is out there. It's already, there's dozens of cities thinking about it. How do we make it a reality? Now, two things we've learned from this, though. One goes down and is not only because of translation, care, which we've used so much in this conversation, still is a little bit too abstract. So what we use more effectively, more and more, is caregivers, because they are people with names and faces, and we say we're now focusing on policies that center caregivers and not only people who need care. And those tend to be women, and those tend to be poorer than average, poor in time and poor in money. So by centering the people who do care, caregivers, las personas cuidadoras, as we say in Spanish, that is really effective. And that makes me think that for many of the other topics, too quickly we go with a big abstract word. And actually, we're too quick to abandon the face, the human-specific face. So as we go to these three very abstract words, local, social, covenant, how do we keep bringing that kind of approach of, the faces, the specifics that will make everyone in the room say, of course, that's crucial. Of course, local authorities have to be there. Of course, this is the tissue of our societies, and this is the most important part of who we are. So an encouragement to everyone to remember that even if we in this room all understand care and all these policies, one easy way to bring this, to make this clear, to bring this to every conversation is to say, that woman who's caring for the 1-year-old kid or this, that's what this is all about, right? Her time, poverty, all the other things. That works well. Second comment, and it's similar to this, there is all these positive things that local authorities bring to these global multilateral discussions. There is one which I also believe local authorities are part of, which is increasingly what we find is that there are so few resources and such big needs that local authorities, and any authorities really, cannot be part of the problem. We are putting a lot of discussion into metropolitan governance, into some ideas that are about making sure that we're not making life more difficult to citizens and not easier. And I know it's not popular to say this, I know we are struggling to do this, but we, especially in big cities, we're finding that there's still a constant need to keep reminding local administrations that life is still too difficult in front of administrations. Especially, as the mayor of Montevideo was reminding us, for people with fewer resources, who are migrants, who are maybe not, digitally illiterate, and so on. So I leave you with these two thoughts. One is more about being a bit more concrete. The other one is about not making it more difficult, especially for those who have difficult to access our services. That's it.
Thank you very much. I think this is really complementary with what we're trying to do here, but allow me to be a bit provocative, Jordi, and say to you, you need to use big words when you want a very thorough transformation. And in the big words that are composing our history, like freedom, like equality, like love, they are very, very difficult to define. And they are built by very small, concrete steps. So I agree with you. We need to define those concrete steps. When we talk about care, we need to understand well what the different components of care are. Fully agree with that. But what we are bringing to the table as local and regional governments with this paradigm shift is bigger than the caregivers. It's about changing what we understand as quality of life. And caregivers are a very important part of that. And in fact, with time, all of us should become a caregiver. All of us, without exception. But it is beyond those that are dependent or need care. It's about understanding the role of humans in the future as not a productive being, but as a creative one. So I really like what you're saying about focusing the action and supporting our membership to focus on very concrete people that play a critical role for care. But in the covenant, in this proposal that we want to bring to the social summit, we want to go bigger. We want to challenge what we understand as a society that is quality of living. It's not about building high rises so that you can avoid the traffic. It's maybe about not having that traffic. That's the kind of shift that I am that I think we are trying to find as a movement. It's not an easy one, and you cannot develop it without the building blocks that you are defining. So I really like your second point as well, on don't make life more difficult than it already is. I think that's a very good approach. I think that we should take on board for discussions, and maybe should be the departing point of discussions. In fact, for tomorrow, Jordi, when we talk about getting ready to deliver these things, and maybe we need to look at that. I have the team pointing there. Yes, sorry, because they are all like, I wasn't seeing who that was. Please, go ahead, Mikkel.
Yeah, thank you. I guess it's a reflection, but I was really sort of provoked a bit when we heard about Addis and the mayor committing to being the best. I don't know if it's the best city in Africa for children, or but something around those lines. And I want to make the point that we need to bring the inequality into every single one of these discussions. So take the example in Addis. For those that were at World Urban Forum, we were shown this beautiful area with bicycle lanes and walking paths, and it was I'm sure those streets are nice to be a child in. But it is a tale of two cities there, because a whole settlement was removed forcefully from that area and dumped somewhere out at the outskirts of the city. And we somehow need to address that when we talk about services and care and in housing, it's an obviously part of that discussion, that it is a tale of two cities here, that there are parts of the cities that are not included in some of what we consider sort of the average service delivery, even when that is not delivering at the scale we would like. And there are parts that are either underserved and some that are totally not served, and that actually experience the city as a hostile environment to them. And I think that inequality is something we need to bring into the conversations. Another point that I think links to that is, Sophia, you brought it up, these community, and I've also talked about public community partnerships as one of the solutions, I think, to deliver on a lot of these agendas. One thing that we see again and again disrupt such partnership is tenure security and forced eviction. So taking a bit back to the Addis, so building that trust also requires that we need to commit to put an end to forced evictions. Or relocations, as they're now called, or whatever, that there needs to be someone addressing that if we want to build these partnerships, and we need to start talking about these two different cities that people experience. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I don't know any city that doesn't have two cities or more in it, including this city in Barcelona. I mean, so I think it is very relevant to address that for sure. And that triggers also with Adrià Romeu, the director that I introduced earlier today, helped us document what the mayor of Banjul is trying to do around care and feminist movement. And I'm sure Jordi is going to love that, because, you know, for the mayor of Banjul, care means, first of all, motivating children to clean the streets and young people, giving gardens to women to grow their own vegetables, and buying 4 washing machines to put in certain places so that women didn't need to walk a very long way. And so it's about the people that they care. You see, that human factor is totally there. But by doing that, she has created a whole different movement around Banjul. There were people now want to clean their neighborhoods, and they want to, you know, now that they have the washing machines, they might want a library with the washing machines, or they might want to, you know, learn something around IT and things like that. So that tale of two cities is important, because we need to bring all of this to everywhere, and equality is at the heart of that. So thank you so much for those thoughts, and I really, I mean, it would be really nice for you to also look at that documentary, because it has a very special spirit there around the actions of the mayor of Banjul. I have seen you, William. Please, go ahead. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Emilia, and I think today's been a great chance to look at caring from different perspectives. I might add from an Australian perspective, in terms of what the public-private leadership and the partnerships look like. And I think when we talk about caring, the first concept and the first solution that pops into my mind is how to care for country. From an Indigenous perspective, from a traditional landholder, in terms of the knowledge that should be passed on as custodians of our environments, but also the land. You know, we've been talking about social justice, but for me, from a planning perspective, we cannot be addressing social justice without really tackling spatial justice, which has been mentioned today. And even through the UN World Urban Forum, which the World Assembly, we had the Executive Director of UN Habitat and many other speakers talk about not only leaving no one behind, but leaving no place behind. And as city leaders, as mayors, and as administratives of the places that we create in terms of who gets to occupy. In Australia, we've been working in terms of the professions. We architects and urban planners now since 2020, every year has to learn and take a formal 1-hour module on how we design for country, how we care for country and our planet from an Indigenous, holistic understanding. Even the projects that we're delivering, public projects, the assets, have to involve Indigenous experts, Indigenous designers, and it's something where it is conflicting because for those who are non-Indigenous practitioners, it's hard to do it right, to have it in terms of culturally appropriate, to observe Indigenous protocols, and that's something that's ongoing. I also then want to mention about what came out yesterday from our field trip into the city on feminism with the regional government of Barcelona, and looking at how we can, as city leaders, also influence the professions and influence those experts to be looking at gender equality. And in the city of Sydney 5 years ago, we implemented a policy that really looks at reshaping male-dominated industries like construction, like architecture, the people who make our buildings. And I know that a lot of mayors enjoy, from a political perspective, it's kind of the hard infrastructure which gets a lot of photo attention, media attention, cutting ribbons. It seems like we're doing something. And I think if we can shift that, and what the City of Sydney has done is mandated through our planning policies, any new buildings in terms of that's approved by the local government has to have at the leadership level in terms of the architecture and planning teams, as well as the staff level, 40% of those teams have to be male, 40% have to be female, and 20% can be from any gender, including gender diverse peoples. So that really is showing that it's not just a policy of here's a box-ticking exercise of affirmative action for gender equality, because these built outcomes, when involving women architects, women designers in the planning, is manifested physically in the built environment. It's creating a much safer, caring place for people to live in.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It is indeed a missing piece. It is indeed a missing piece. The indigenous approach is something that we have been conscious about, but I mean, quite frankly, we haven't been able to bring it in sufficiently in our work. And thank you for reminding us. We will try to make that happen. There is a bit of an obstacle for us in terms of how to get enough resources to involve those particular groups. We have incredible champions like Pifi that has joined us in the past, but we do have actual limitations to make that happen. But it's a good point, and I don't think we can afford to let it go. So we're taking good note of this. Thank you so much for that. If I don't see any hands, what I would propose is to start wrapping up the day. I have been told that we have slides with the outcomes of the game that we can look at tomorrow. There is no need to show them now, I would say. If you are curious about those slides, you can actually ask for them and we can deliver them. And we might be using them tomorrow in this narrower group when we are getting ready to deliver. But so that you know, we are doing the job, the slides are ready, and your inputs are taken into account. So to start to wrap up, Billy, can I call on you to some remarks to make the connection between how we started the day today and the discussions that you've been hearing?
Thank you. Thanks, Emilia, and thanks for the heads up. It was always useful. I'm happy to reflect on today, but
I had given him heads up.
It's
not.
This
time I had actually warned him. Yes, Billy, go ahead.
That's why I've got something written down, which is good. I think like yesterday, a vibrant debate. I can't say that it began well because then that's you and me at the beginning. But I think it was very successful in going through the global and the local and through the prism of a whole range of key issues. For me, the particular highlight is not linking it to this morning, but going back to yesterday. You've got the theme of youth in the strategic workshop, but then to address that through an intergenerational dialogue, I thought was the highlight. Someone has already mentioned that was the highlight of the week. I agree. I think that was, and I would encourage UCLG to retain that as a very, very useful lens. If you think about both the geographies and the facts of, for example, what has come up so often again, the demographic challenges that we are going to be facing, examining those through, you'll get very different answers and different scenarios in different geographies. And the intergenerational lens is a key one of doing it. So I think that was key. And the second is, as we were listening to all of the discussions, so often when we call the new essentials, and we agree the new essentials are, a revitalization sometimes of the old essentials, that's fine. In so many of the cases we're talking about, we have the technical skills and the know-how to address almost all of the problems that we are confronting and dealing with. But added to that, and we heard it from the debates, there's a whole range of possibilities for innovation and for new thinking, and that is very welcome. Then, of course, I have to come with the caveat, and there's two caveats. The one is that in many, many cases, even though we have the technical skills and everything else, we have to say that in some scenarios, local governments and regional governments themselves constitute the major barrier themselves to progress, and we need to be very clear about that. So we don't praise ourselves as this is the constituency that's going to deliver. Sometimes this very same constituency is the single biggest roadblock in making progress about everything we've spoken about. And one example that Mikhail referred to was, for example, forced evictions, which have been in the name of progress or whatever, and sometimes not at all. And the second also constraint is what we're discussing here so often requires action over time, and short-term electoral cycles so often kill progress at the local government level and the regional government level. And then if you're into 3- and 4-year cycles of governments changing, and then there has to always be a new picture, it actually often cuts short the progress that the previous government was making. And so how we establish consensus beyond elections at a local level, I think, is key to addressing these developmental challenges.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And thank you also for addressing the elephant in the room. I mean, not every woman is a feminist. In this country, and in many other countries, by the way, when women were fighting for voting rights, it was women that were demonstrating against voting rights for women. It's part of our history. This is to say that, of course, not all local and regional governments are following these ideas. But what we are creating is that collective agenda. We are making care not like we were talking about time. It's no longer an individual agenda. It's a collective agenda, and so that's what we are trying to do. Then the whole issue of mandates I find really interesting, and it's becoming a big issue now because in many countries to prevent corruption, they are going to very short mandates, and that is extremely difficult. It's counterproductive, in fact. It's a discussion that we need to have. So thank you very much for that. I cannot agree more, and we'll need to reflect further on how to ensure that the link between that intergenerational dialogue and the convenant remains very, very strong. Thank you for everybody's input. Thank you all for reminding the visit, the trip that was done yesterday to the facilities of the province of Barcelona. I know the discussions were very interesting. I hope that all of you have enjoyed the diversity of the retreat up until now. Tomorrow we will come smaller and we look at our own means to deliver. As always, it has been a true pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much. Have a very nice evening.
Thank you.